Okay, Shvua Tov. So we're here on the bottom, towards the bottom of Beis and Beis, and we're in the middle of the discussion of trying to understand when the responsibility, when the obligation of reciting Shema at night begins. So we're here at the dot, about 2/3 of the way down, and the Gemara asks, "V'ani v'koyin chad shiruhu," is the time when the poor person comes in to eat his dinner at night, and the time that the Kohen is actually able to now eat Truma at night. Is it chad shiruhu? Is it in fact the same time? Very minahu. And I'll ask you a question from a brayso that says, "Me'emasai maschilu likros Shema ba'arvin." From when does one begin reciting Shema at night? Mishash kiddush hayom ba'arvei Shabbosos. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says from the time when we are mekadesh the day of Shabbos, before Shabbos, which is, as we know, in fact, to be Shkia. Right? From the time of when we bring Shabbos in. From the time Rishua says when the Kohanim are Torah and now can eat Truma. Rameir said that the time is in fact when the Kohanim, from the time when they are Tovel, when they dip in the mikvah, that's when we to eat their Truma. And in the middle of the brayso, there's interjection. Rabbi Yehuda tells Rameir, they have to go to the mikvah before the night comes, when it's daytime. So that can't make sense with B'shach B'chaz, when time when people are going to sleep. We'll get back to that, more on that in a bit. Rabbi Chanina says from the time when the poor person would come in to eat his pita with melach. Rabbi Chai, some say there was Rabbi Acha. Not the poor person, but the time when the average Joe, when the regular middle class person would enter Nichnas al-Haseh, literally to recline, meaning to eat their meal. Okay, so we have various different opinions here in the Braita. So now, we ask, if we're going to say that that the time when the poor person comes in to eat his pizza, as we explained, that the poor person has no extra money for artificial light, and he comes in straight away from working and eats. The Kohen in the time when the Kohanim are able to eat, which is Seisa Kochavim, if we're going to say that's Chad Shiruhu, that's in fact is the same shir, it's the same time at night. Rabbi Chanina, Hainu Rabbi Yeshua. If you look at the brayso that we just brought down, we had Rabbi Yeshua say from the time that the Kohanim could eat, when they're Torah to eat, which we said is Seis, and we have Rabbi Chanina, who says from the time when the Ani comes in to eat his pita. So they're in fact in the same brayso arguing, so that would be the same shir, that would not make sense. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Elolav must be Shema Mina." We hear from here, "Shi'ur de Ani l'chud, v'shi'ura de Kohen l'chud Shema Mina." Okay, we can in fact infer from here that these are two different times that the brayso is given, that the time of the Ani and the time of the Kohen. So the Gemara asks, "Hai minayu mu'achar?" Which one is in fact later? The time of the Kohen is with Tzeisa Kochavim, which we know to be Tzeisa Kochavim from the brayso and from our Mishnah. But is the time of the Ani, is that before Tzeisa Kochavim or after? So the Gemara answers, "Mistavra," it makes sense to say the Ani mu'achar, that the time when the Ani eats his bread after work is in fact later than Seis. That the time the shir of the Ani is before the Kohen. Rabbi Chanina, Hainu Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Chanina, who says that the Ani, when the time the Ani comes in, if that would in fact be before Seis, then he would fall out Hainu Rabbi Eliezer. He would be the shita of Rabbi Eliezer, which we said is a time when the people are Mekadesh Shabbos, which is Shkia. So the assumption is it wouldn't necessarily be exactly Rabbi Eliezer, but the Gemara's assumption is that there wouldn't be enough, a difference of a minute or two would not be enough of a significant time to have its own shita, and it would be the time of Rabbi Eliezer. Rashmanias must be that the Ani is its own shir, and it's mu'uchar. It's after the time of Seis HaKochavim, when the Kohanim could eat. Shmamina, this is indeed a good proof. So now the Gemara says, we said earlier, Amamar, we had a quote from the brayso, Amamar Rabbi Yehuda told him, V'halei Kohanim miba'oi jemim tevlim. Rabbi Meir had said in the brayso that the time for saying Kriya Shema begins when the Kohanim are Tovel, when they go into the mikvah, before they eat their Truma, which we know occurs during the day, says Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, in fact, Shaper Kamalei Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Meir. This is a valid point. What's Rabbi Meir's response going to be? So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Meir, Hachi Kamalei. This is what Rabbi Meir would say back to him. Mi savrit da'ana aben hashmoshes didach ka'amina. Mi savrit, do I hold do I hold of your Ben Hashmoshes? Ana Ben Hashmoshes to Rav Yossi Ka'amina. Okay? Now, a little bit background over here. Ben Hashmoshes is the time, this in-between time of Sefik Yom and Sefik Laila, which is unclear if it's in fact yet turned day, or if it's in fact turned night, or if it's still the day. Now, this time precedes immediately the time for Seisa Kochavim, which is definite nightfall. Okay? So, he said, you think I hold of your Ben Hashmoshes? Okay, Ana Ben Hashmoshes to Rav Yossi Kamina. That means the Amar of Yossi, Rav Yossi said, Ben Hashmoshes keherav ayin. The Ben Hashmoshes of Rav Yossi was like the blink of an eye. Zeh nichnas v'zeh yetze. Zeh nichnas, nighttime comes in, v'zeh yetze when the daytime ends, it finishes. V'i efsher lahamer alav, and it's a moment, it's a split second before the time of Seisa Kochavim. Okay, it's called Ben Hashmoshes. So what happens is the understanding that the Gemara that Rabbi Yehuda had when he asked Rameir Shaila is he was looking at through his vantage point. And through his vantage point, the time of Ben Hashmoshes was in fact the time it takes to walk a half a mil. Okay, the Gemara elsewhere it has different discussions. Maybe it's 3 1/4 mil, or 3.5. But for our understanding here, where Rashi is learning, it's a half a mil. Now, a half a mil is a period of anywhere probably between 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. The time it takes to walk is half a mil, and this period of a half a mil's time of walking is called Ben Hashmoshes before it says Kochavim. So what Yehuda's attack on Rameir is that the Kohanim have to go to the mikvah before the Sefik night. So they would have to go before Ben Hashmoshes. Now you can't call that a time where people are going to sleep. That in fact can't be called a time that people are going to sleep when it's still for sure a day. So his answer back is, I don't hold of your Ben Hashmoshes. I hold of the Ben Hashmoshes of Rav Yossi, which in fact is a moment's time. So they would go to the mikvah actually just a few moments before, for sure, the definite nightfall of Seisa Kochavim, the definite nighttime of Seisa Kochavim, they would go to the mikvah, and that would be a valid mikvah as being before Ben Hashmoshes. Okay? And that was his answer. Now the Gemara has 2 questions. Kasha Rameir, Ad Rameir. The first question is the brisa that we just listed, we had Rameir say from the time that the Kohanim actually dipped in the mikvah, right, which we said was a bit before Ben Hashmoshes, and we had earlier in brisa number 2, the brisa that we brought down, that Rameir said the time when people go in to eat the pita on Erev Shabbos. So that's a question, what is Rameir's shita? He's getting 2 different social norms to mark the beginning of the obligation to Shema. So the Gemara answers, Trei Tanai Aliba Rameir. There are in fact 2 Tanai Aliba Rameir, so it's not a contradiction to Rameir's own opinion. He himself said something in the base Medrash, where he had taught, and 2 Tanaim came out of that base Medrash with 2 different understandings of Rameir, and they had 2 different quotes, and that was the Trei Tanai, 2 Tanaim Aliba Rameir, who were coming from the base Medrash of Rameir. Now we have the next question. Kasha Rabbi Eliezer Ad Rabbi Eliezer. We have a question of Rabbi Eliezer. Now Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah had seemed to say that Mishash Kohanim Nichnasim Lachim B'Trumasim, from the time when the Kohanim are going to enter to eat their truma, and then we had Rabbi Eliezer that we brought down over here from the time that people in the Kaddish Hayom B'Arei Shabbosos, which is definitely a discrepancy in time, which we had explained to mean Shkia. So our Mishnah says that Kochavim, and Rabbi Eliezer in the Brisa is from Shkia. So what is Rabbi Eliezer's opinion? So the first answer is the same answer. Trei Tanai Aliba de Rabbi Eliezer. There's in fact 2 different opinions that came out of Rabbi Eliezer's teachings. There must have been some lack of clarity, and they had taught it differently. Vibay's Ema, an alternative answer that we can give is that if we look in the Mishnah, the way we explain the Mishnah is that from when can you reach Shema at night? From the time the Kohanim come in to eat the Truma until the end of the first watch. Those are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, different Rabbi Eliezer. Now you can actually break that into 2 parts. It can say, from when does one reach Shema at night? From the time that the Kohanim eat the Truma, part 1. Part 2, until when? Which becomes a machlokas. Rabbi Eliezer, the Chachamim, and Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Eliezer says until the end of the first watch, but the beginning of the from when, that was the opinion of the Tanakama of our Mishnah, and Rabbi Eliezer himself held that the obligation started only from Shkia Misha Shkia Shayim B'Arei Shabbosos. Okay, so that's the V'Yosema Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer was in fact not Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so now the Gemara continues. Ad Seifa Shmura Rishona. That was the opinion of Eliezer, that the Krishma can be said until the time when people are going to sleep, and people go to sleep until the end of the first watch. Okay, so the Gemara asked, "My Kasava Eliezer." What is Eliezer's opinion? As we'll see, there is a machokas. Does the night get divided into 3 parts or into 4 parts? And the difference really, as we'll see, was the idea that there are parts in heaven that different groups of angels would praise God on different, and then have timings. So if there was 3 parts of the night or 4 parts of the night, so Rabbi Eliezer said, they want to ask, "My Kasavar Rabbi Eliezer, what is Rabbi Eliezer's opinion?" Kasavar, if his opinion is that Shalish Mishmoris Havelayla, that the night is divided into 3 parts, Lema and Arbashel. So if you divide the night of 12 astronomical hours into 3 parts, you should say that you can read Krishma until the 4th hour of the night. That there are 4 watches, the night is in fact divided into 4 parts, then it should be 3, Lema ad Shalosh, until 3 hours into the night. 12 is divided by 4. So the more answers, really he held that the night is divided into 3 watches, 3 parts. He's coming to teach us another side thing, and what is that? The Ikka Mishmaris Berakia, the Ikka Mishmaris Ba'ar, that the concept of the celestial beings having the night divided into 3 watches is corresponded by the night being divided into 3 watches here on earth. And as we'll see in the Brisa, the Tanya Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer himself said, Shalosh Mishmaris Havelayla, the night is in fact divided into 3 watches. V'al kol mishmar u'mishmar, there is a sign on every watch, Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem sits, v'sho'eg ka'ari, and he roars like a lion, crying over the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Shenemar Hashem mimarom yishag, Hashem from on high, he will roar one time, yishag, u'mima'on kacho, from his holy abode, yitin kolo, he will give forth his voice, sho'eg yishag, continuously roaring, al naveu, about his abode, or his missing. Okay? So we see 3 times the word sho'eg, Yishag, and Yishag, which gives us that there are 3 times a night, 3 different mishmaros Hashem cries out. Okay? The similar davar, there's actually here on this earth, as we said, Tikariki Ba'ara, that there are here Ba'ara, one of the 3 signs of the mishmar. So the similar davar, and the signs are Mishmar Rishona, the first watch has Chamar Ner, you will hear the donkeys braying outside. Shniya, the second watch, Kelavim Tzoakim, you will hear dogs barking. And Shlishis, the third watch, Tinuk Yonik Mishadaima, that's when the babies are, the wee early mornings, the hours in the morning, the late night, when the babies are nursing from the bosoms of their mother. Ve'isha Misapersim Bala, and the women are talking to their husbands in the early morning. Okay? So, interesting to note here, I heard once from the Maharal from Prague, he said that here, this in fact, the Gemara, as the Maharsha explains as well, is actually an allegory referring to the night of the exile, which we're talking about here, and this is corresponding to 3 different stages that occurred during the exile. The first stage being the enemies of the Jewish people, destroying and really taking advantage of the physicality or of the money, taxing the Jewish people during the exile, and that's corresponded by Chamor Ner, the donkey, which is a symbol of Chamor, of Chumriot, which is the lesson of physicality, his braying. Okay, when they were taxed and we were taken, our money was taken away. The second part of the Golus of the exile is Kelevim Tzoakim, and he says that the Kelev Tzoak is a symbol, as there are other places in the Gemara, of the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, coming to the city, and the dogs bark, meaning when we were literally taken and oppressed, physically we were beaten and killed. And Shlish is the third part of the Golus, refers to Tinuk Yonik Mishadaimo, is when there's a complete, it seems serene, but really this is the Jewish people getting lost in the diaspora and corresponding to the chasnas with the Goyim. And the fourth part of the night, which is actually the Maharal foresaw the Tshuva movement, the Baal Tshuva movement, is Isha Misaperes Bala, is Klal Yisrael returning to her husband, returning to Hashem. So this is the 4 parts, and it's really 3 different signs, but was given the part 2 of the last sign that correspond to the parts of the Gullus. So the Gemara continues at the top. My Kachashiv Rebbe Eliezer. When does Rebbe Eliezer say this signs are shown here on the ground of the different mishmaros? When did they occur? When did he calculate? If he calculated that it took place at the beginning of the mishmar, that's when the sign occurred. What do I need a symbol? What do I need a sign for the first mishmar? Urtahu, you could see that it's becoming dark at night. So if it's becoming dark, that's a sign that the first mishmar is occurring. And you wouldn't need the chamar ner, you wouldn't need the symbol for it. And Isayf mishmar skachashav, that the simanim took place at the end, then mishmar achrona lamalu, what do I need the last sign? Yamamahu, it's becoming day. So the Gemara answers, he calculated Saif Mishmara Rishona, that the sign occurred at the end of the first watch, Tchilas Mishmara Achrona, the beginning of the last watch, then Tziasa in the middle of the middle watch. Okay? That is the first answer. If anybody's saying alternative, we can answer, Kulo Saif Mishmara Skachashiv. In fact, he's really referring to the end of each mishmar when the simon took place. The chitem, and if you're going to say achrona leitzarech, what do you need the last one for? L'may nafkamina, what's the difference? If it's already turning light outside, then you could just look outside. You don't, in fact, need the last simon. So my answer is l'mikri kriyishma l'man degane de beis avel. That no, a guy who's in a beis afel, a very dark house, and he can't see v'layed man kriyishma emes, he doesn't know when the beginning of this man of the Shema in the morning begins. Came into Isham Saper Samara, once he hears the woman start talking to her husband, Vitina Gerek Misha the emo, and the babies are starting to nurse, like a military, he can get up and in fact read the Shema. Okay? So now, the Gemara is going to continue. An Amr of Yitzchak by Shmuel along the same lines, Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav. Gimel Mishmar Havilah is divided into 3 parts. Thou call Mishmar, Yeshiva Kodesh Baruch Hu, on every watch Hashem sits, V'sha'ei ka'ari, and he roars like a lion, Va'omer, and he says, O Levanim, woe to my children, Sheva Avanei Sehem, because of their sins, Achrafti is basically, I had destroyed my home, which is the temple, the Beis HaMikdash, V'sarafti, and I had to burn, Seicholi, my sanctuary, V'yiglisem, and I exiled them, L'beinu umas ha'olam, between the nations of the world. Tanya, we learn in a Brisa. Amar Rav Yossi said, Palachas, one time I was walking along the way, V'mechrasti, and I entered, L'chuv Achas M'chuv Yerushalayim, to one of the ruins from old Jerusalem, to pray. Okay, I needed to daven, I was along the way, and I went into one of these ruins to pray. Eliyahu Zachul Atov, Eliyahu, may his name be for remembrance, came to Shomali al Pesach, and he waited me for me there. Okay? Until I completed davening. After I had stopped davening, he told me, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, peace upon you, Rebbe. And I told him, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, peace on you, my Rebbe and my master. And he told me, B'ni, my son, why did you go inside this ruin? It's dangerous. I told him, I had to daven. And he told me, you should have in fact davened on the way, on the road. And I told him, I was afraid. Maybe people would come and want to pass with their wagons, and they would disturb my davening. So I didn't want to have that problem, so I entered one of these ruins alongside the road. He told me, you should have davened a shortened, abridged version. As Tosfos explains, the Gemara later on talks about, and Rashi here also, that the concept of Havinenu, and that is when you're in a pressing circumstance and you can't say all 18 brachas of the Shemona Esrei. There's an abridged version called Havinenu, which has the first 3 blessings in full, the last 3 blessings in full as well, and all of the middle blessings are woven together into one concise bracha that ends with Shemea Tefillah, and that's called Havinenu. And that you can daven in dire circumstances. So he said you should have davened a shorter Tefillah. So Ba'is Hashah, the second wide line, the first word on the line. Ba'is Hashah, at that time, I learned 3 things from Eliyahu Hanavi, says Rav Yossi. I learned that you don't enter into these ruins. And I learned that you could daven on the way. And I learned that one who davens on the way, in the middle of the road, he's afraid that he may get disturbed, he should daven this shortened abridged version of Havinenu. He told me, Bani, my son, did you in fact, did you hear any voices talking? And I told him, actually, Shamati Basko, I heard a Basko, literally a daughter of a voice. So the first explained that Nevuah ended at the end of Chagi Zechariah Malachi, the end of the 48 Nevuahs. Nevi'im, that was the prophecy, as we know it from the prophets, came to an end at that time, which is the beginning of Bayis Sheni, the Second Temple. And there was a concept still that continued called the Basko, which is sort of a voice from on high. So they called it the daughter of a voice, because it sort of corresponds to the concept of nevuah without real nevius. So he said, I heard this voice, Sheminahemes Kiyona, that was cooing like a dove. V'omeres, and was saying, O Levanim, woe to my children, Shabbat, when I say I'm in their sins, Echrafti es Beisi, I destroyed my house, V'sarafti es Eichali, and I burned my sanctuary, V'eglisem lebeina umais, and I had to exile them between the nations. This is what Yossi told Eliyahu Hanavi, I heard this voice. V'amali and Eliyahu Hanavi told me, Chayecha v'chayeshecha, by your life and the life of your head, which is the language of oath, by oath. Not only this time did it say this voice, 3 times a day, every day, this voice comes out. And not only that alone, at the time when the Jewish people enter into the synagogues and into the houses of study, and they answer Yeheshmei Rabbah to the Kaddish blessing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem shakes his head, and he says, Ashrei HaMelech, praiseworthy is the king, Shemekasan Osa B'Beisokach, that they praised him like this in his house. And Ma'alel Av, and woe to the father, Shehigla Esbanav, that had to exile his sons, Va'olahem Lebanim, and woe to the sons, Shegolu Me'ashulchan Avim, that got exiled from their own father's table. Now, two things quickly to point out. There's a discussion of Tosfos here. It's brought down the halacha, the question of when you say Amen Yeheshmei Rabbah, the understanding of that line. Now, the simple understanding, which is the way Tosfos understands it, and he brings a proof from this Gemara, is that when we say Amen Yeheshmei Rabbah Mevarach La'olam Le'olmei Omaya, it's in fact one long statement that says, May Yeheshmei Rabbah, may Hashem's great name, Mevarach, be blessed forever and ever. Now, Krosos quotes the Master Vitri, who says that the concept is that after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, through our understanding of God, that God has a certain incompleteness in our understanding, our limited understanding of God, and therefore we say Yehei Shmei Rabbah, may Hashem's name be great. In the sense, may it become complete, may the temple be rebuilt, and his name become complete. Second statement, Kama, Mevorach La'olam Le'olmei Omaya, may Hashem be blessed. Okay? Now Tosfos points out from our Gemara where it says Yehei Shmei HaGadol Mevorach, may Hashem's great name, where it's already great, be blessed, seems to be, which is brought halacha, which is brought down that you shouldn't pause when saying Yehei Shmei Rabbah, and it should in fact be Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach La'olam Le'olmei Omaya, as Hashem's great name be blessed forever and ever. Okay, so the Gemara, the second thing to point out is that the Mefarshim explain that over here when Hashem shakes his head and says, praiseworthy is the king that they blessed him so in his house, was referring to when the Beis HaMikdash was around and Hashem was called Melech, and Hashem was in a state of Malchus, of kingship. After he went to Golus, Hashem removed himself from the Beis HaMikdash and from Yerushalayim, from Tzion, then the Hashem turns from a king into a status of a father. Okay? And the father is a different relationship than the king, even though it's still a loving relationship. Hashem still has his hand over us. The Gemara Chagiga says he's very much watching over us and caring for us, yet we lost the status of king in a certain regard. Okay, the Gemara continues. Now, like Rav Yossi quoted, Eliyahu Hanavi, who told him, stay out of the churva. Okay? Now the Churvas were the ruins that were around Jerusalem, around the Eretz Yisrael, from the second temple and before, and he told them it's dangerous to go into them. So why is it dangerous? So the Brachos says three reasons. Three reasons why you don't go into the Churva, into the destroyed ruins. One is Mipnei Chashad, because people may think that it's a quiet, private place, and you're trying to seclude yourself there because you're waiting, in fact, for a prostitute, and the people will come to be suspicious of you. So, because of suspicion. The second reason is Mipnei Hamapolas, because it's dangerous, because they may fall down, the walls may fall down. And the third reason is Mipnei Hamazikin, because of demons, because of shadim that hang out in these deserted places. So, all three reasons are dangerous and, not advised to go in. So the Gemara asks, Mipnei Chashad, first reason we gave was because of suspicion. So, what do we need all three reasons for? Now, Rashi says clearly, the last Rashi, what do we need all three reasons for one purpose? One thing is basically telling us, don't go in. It must be that if the Bryce is giving us three reasons, that all three reasons will apply, meaning that there are examples where one of the reasons is not enough, even two of the reasons, and we would have to give examples where all three reasons would be needed. So what are they? Says the Gemara, Mipnei Chashad. We said because of Chashad, because people may suspect you. Says the Gemara, B'tepik Mishum Mapolis. Is it not enough just to say that it's dangerous because the walls may fall down? Says the Gemara, B'chadati. It's in fact talking about a fresh fall, meaning it was a relatively new building, and the wall fell down, and the fact that it fell down is sort of like a free case that it fell down. So there's no real reason to have a chashash, to have a worry that the other walls would fall down. Okay, so in that case, if it's a sort of a new one, the reason of the walls falling don't apply. So says the Gemara, okay, still, but typically Mishum Mazikin. Why do we need the reason of suspicion? Say the reason is because of the demons. The Gemara answers betray. That the case is talking about where there's two people walking in together. So if there's two people, then we don't have a fear of demons because demons don't attack two. Says the Gemara, betray, if we're talking about two people, then chashad namileka. There shouldn't be a fear that people will think that you're going to seclude yourself there and you have a rendezvous with a prostitute. So the Gemara answers betray upritzi. As the Gemara Kedushin says, two who are immoral. Now, the concept of yichud, of locking yourself, secluding yourself with a woman, and chashad, don't apply with two normally. The Gemara Kedushin talks about pritzi, immoral people, even 10 is not enough because they'll commit sins together. Okay, so the case is talking about two. So since it's two, we're not afraid of the demons, and it's a new one, so we're not afraid of the walls falling down, but we're still afraid of chashad. Okay, of suspicion because it's two people who are known to be immoral. Then the Gemara continues, Mipnei Hamapolas. We said that we're afraid that the walls are going to fall. Says the Gemara, what do you need that reason for? B'tepik Mishum Chashad or Mazikin. The synthesis of suspicion and the demon should be enough that we shouldn't have to have listed the case of the walls falling down. So the Gemara answers that no. In the case of Trey Vikashri. Trey Vikashri means two who are kosher. I.e., that we're not afraid that they're going to seclude themselves, and we're not afraid of the demons because they're two, but we're still afraid that the walls are going to fall down. Then the Gemara asks, the final reason the Brisa gave, because of the demons. The reasons of suspicion and the reasons the walls falling should have been enough. So the Gemara answers, we're in fact talking about a new churva. Okay? So we're not afraid of the walls falling down. We betray the kasher. We're talking about two who are upstanding citizens who are not immoral. So we're not afraid of chashad. But we're still afraid of the demons. Says the Gemara. Like we said, a betray, if it's talking about two, mazikin namileka. There should not be a problem of mazikin, of the demons. So the Gemara answers, in their hangout, where they like to gather, we are afraid even for two, where it could be dangerous. Alternatively, really is talking about one, or in a newer destruction of a building, and therefore we're not afraid of the other walls falling down. And the Gemara says to Koi Badabra, but it's in the wilderness, it's in the middle of nowhere. So the Hasim over there, Mishum Chashad Leka. There's no fear of chashad. of suspicion. Because a woman in the middle of the wilderness is not common. It's not common that you'd assign a meeting place with a prostitute to be in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert somewhere. But Mishum Azik and Ichabod were still afraid of the demons, because he's in fact one person alone. Now the Gemara continues. Along these lines, as we had the discussion before about the mishmaros, the watches that the night's divided into, if there's 3 or 4. The Gemara goes to the source. Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Brisa. The night is divided into 4 parts, 4 watches. Tivri Rebbe, that's the words of Rebbe. Rav Nassan Omar, Rabbi Nassan says, Shalosh is divided into 3. Okay, and we go to the source, and we want to understand where they came up with these 3 or 4. So my time under Rav Nassan. Why does Rav Nassan say the night is divided into 3 parts? The verse says, Vayavu Gidon, and Shoftim Gidon came, Umea Ish Asher Ito, and 100 men who were with him. And they came up to the edge of the camp. Rosh HaAshmuros HaTichona. At the beginning of the Ashmura, the watch, HaTichona, which means middle. And Tana, we learned, in Tichona, the middle only refers, you can only use middle when there's a prior and an after. So, a beginning and an end and a middle. So, if it was the beginning of the middle watch, must have been there's 1 before, 1 after, which means 3. So Rebbe, how is he going to respond? For Rebbe, my Tichona, what does Tichona mean? What does middle mean? Achas min ha-Tichona shebetichonos. One of the middle of the middles. Okay, there was actually 2 in the middle, because since the night is divided into 4 parts, according to Rebbe, so one of the middle mishmaros, meaning there's plural mishmaros and plurals, so it was one of the middles. So Rav Nassan answers back, Miksiv Tichona should be Tichonos. Does it write the middle of the middles? Tichona wrote that he came in the beginning of the middle mishmar, and therefore it's more logical to say that there's 1 before and 1 after, equaling to 3. Okay? That's the understanding of Rav Nassan. For Rebbe, my time of Rebbe, what's Rebbe's reasoning? Rav Zreika, Rav Ami, Rav Yeshua Balevi. So we have a quote from Rav Zreika, in the name of Rav Ami, in the name of Yeshua Balevi. One verse says, Chatzos Laila Akum Lahavis Lecha HaMishpatei Sekecha. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, at midnight, Chatzos Laila Akum Lahavis Lecha. I will get up to praise you, HaMishpatei Sekecha, on the righteousness of your justice. Okay? Because of Echad, another verse says, Kadmu Einai Ashmuros. That David HaMelech says, I would get up, Kadmu Einai, my eyes preceded, Ashmuros, plural of Mishmars. So he got up at Chatzos, like the pasuk just said. Now Chatzos is midnight. How would you have a case of midnight, that he awoke at midnight, but he still proceeded to Mishmaros? Hakita, how could that be? The Mishmaros Havilayla must be that the night is divided into 4 parts, 4 equal parts, of 12 astronomical hours a night, let's say from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning, divided by 4 means that the first Mishmar is over at 9 o'clock, and the second Mishmar is over at 12 o'clock, and you still have 2 full Mishmaros until 6 o'clock the next morning. Okay? So therefore, says Rabbi, therefore I came up with 4. Okay? And what about Rav Nassan? How is he going to reply? For Rav Nassan, something like Rabbi Yeshua. Rav Nassan holds like Rabbi Yeshua. Tznan Rabbi Yeshua says, Ad Shalosh Shos, okay? That the Kriyishma in the morning can be said until 3 hours into the day, okay? Which means another full 2 hours into the day. So that means that Shekin Derech Malachim Lama B'Shal Shos. The way of kings is to get up at 3 hours in the morning, which is at essentially at the end of 2 full hours, which is 9 o'clock. Okay, 3 hours into the morning. So how do you come up with that? Shistaloya, you have 6 hours of the night from Shistaloya, you have 6 hours of the nighttime, the Trade Yimama, and 2 of the morning, going into up until from the 6 to 8, so to speak. Havalahu Shtei Mishmars equals to the time of 2 Mishmars, but not literally that David HaMelech would get up with 2 full night Mishmars in front of him, but 2 Mishmars that would equal up to the rest of when other kings would wake up, as we'll see shortly on the next daf. The rest of the kings of the world get up at 9 at Shalosh Shos. They get up at the beginning of the 3rd hour, and David HaMelech would get up at Chatzos Halayla, or even earlier, as we'll see in a moment. Okay. So the Tartiji, Mama have two mishmars of two mishmars. Rav Ashi gives another sensible reasoning. Rav Ashi Amar, no, the reason why he gave an answer of how you could come up with mishmaros, even though the night's divided into three parts, because mishmara upalga, not a mishmaros kara lahu. Because even though 12 o'clock is already halfway into the second mishmar, right? If the night's divided into three parts, but still 2 hours, 2 astronomical hours until the next mishmar, and the next mishmar is a mishmar and a half, and you also call mishmaros that David Melech was referring to. Okay? So now, the Gemara is just going to have a quote, since we just brought down the quote from Rizreka, the name of Rav Ami, and the name of Yeshua Levi, we have another quote from the same Madi Amrim, from the same opinions. Amar Rizreka, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Yeshua Levi, you don't say in front of a dead person. Okay, as we'll see in the third parak, what you're allowed to say in front of a dead person. So here's a quote that says, you are not supposed to talk in front of a dead person any words, only things that concern the hesped, in taking care of the mace, and the dead person. Okay? Now, two understandings of what that means. Amar Rabbi Abba, Abba of Kahana. Rav Abba, the son of Rav Kahana, said, Lo Amara, this was not said, Ela b'divrei Torah, only referring to Torah. Okay? There's a concept of Lo'eg l'rosh cheref osehu, which is a pasuk in the Mishnah that says that when we mock the poor, lower the rush, we create a cheref osehu, we're doing a disgraceful act. So, when it comes to doing mitzvahs, doing positive things in this world in front of a dead person, it's like mocking the poor, because the dead person can no longer do mitzvahs. So therefore, you can't talk in Torah because everyone else is going to chime in and talk about Torah, and the dead person just lies there. So, this is only said out of Divrei Torah, referring to Divrei Torah. However, when it comes to other worldly things, less than you can talk about the weather because it doesn't bother the mace. Okay? Alternatively, some say, Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, Rabbi Abba, instead of Kahana, said, and this was not said that you can't talk in front of the mace, Ela afilu b'divrei Torah. Even regarding words of Torah, which is a cover, which is a nice thing, which is a special thing, the Kosher can be allowed, but certainly you can't talk in front of the dead person, but non-important things like the weather or the news. Okay? So he's not concerned with the concept of Lo'eg l'rosh. He's saying, but even Divrei Torah, but certainly other things you would not be able to talk about. So it could be Lo'eg l'rosh as well, but the focus is it only because of Lo'eg l'rosh, or is for sure Lo'eg l'rosh, and certainly not other things once you can't talk Torah. Okay? Now the Gemara is going to go back to David HaMelech, and we talked about David HaMelech as he would wake up at midnight. Says the Gemara, did David wake up at midnight? Did he wake up at half the night? He in fact woke up earlier. He woke up at the beginning of the night. He slept for a very, very short amount of time and woke up at the beginning of the night. The verse says, I woke up baneshef. Okay, we'll very shortly get into a discussion of what the word neshef means. But here the understanding of neshef means in the early evening, and I cried out in prayer. Okay? So, he didn't get up at midnight, he in fact got up earlier. Says the Gemara, Mimai. And how do we know the high neshef urtuhu? How do we know that the word neshef means early evening? T'chsiv baneshef be'erev yom b'isha layla b'afela. Baneshef be'erev yom, which is the evening, and when the night starts, b'isha layla b'afela, turns to darkness. So you see it's referring to the evening. This is what David was in fact saying. I always get up at midnight. In fact, many times, most of the time, I would get up at early in the night. But I never let midnight pass in sleep. Okay, midnight is an opportune time to pray to Hashem, and it's a big the concept of Tikkun Chatzos, where we pray for rebuilding of the temple. And the Gemara continues. Rabbi Zera says, Ad Chatzos Laila, an alternative answer. Until midnight, Hayabisnam Min Kasus. David HaMelech would sort of sleep like a horse. Now, a horse doesn't really sleep very intensely. They only sleep, the Gemara in Sukkot talks about, we actually learn halachas regarding how long you have to what's considered halachic sleep for washing your hands, for Netilas Yadayim. We learn from the horse, which Shishin Nishmin, which is 60 breaths. Okay, which some of the Mepharshim say that a human being breathes something like I think is 1,080 breaths in an hour. And 60 breaths was equivalent of like 3.5 minutes. Now you'd in fact have to wash your hands for 3.5 minutes. The Ben Halacha, Shai Truma bring down that it's actually closer to about a half hour's time. Because it's talking about the horse's breaths, 60 horse's breaths, which is much longer of our breaths. Okay, but the Gemara says that he would misnanim kasus, he would sort of doze like a horse, and mekabelech, but after that, he would strengthen himself like a lion at chatzos to daven and to cry out to Hashem. Okay? The third answer of Rashi Amar ad chatzos laila until chatzos haya oisik b'divrei Torah, he learned Torah. But mekabelech after that, b'shir susis brachos. That's why it said chatzos laila, I got up to praise you. Meaning before that he was learning Torah, and at chatzos he began davening. Says the Gemara, Vaneshev Urtu. We brought the verse that said, Kadamti Vaneshev Hashaveh, David HaMelech was up from early in the evening, right? Early evening is when he woke up. Does Neshef, the word Neshef in fact mean early evening? Haneshev Safru, the word Neshef was actually really means early morning. Another pasuk with David HaMelech says, Vayakim David went to war and he smit them. Mehaneshef, he went to war and he hit them from the Neshef, and the next day from the Neshef, from the early morning until the evening. So, Ma'alav does not mean that Neshef over here meets Safra, from the Safra, from the morning until the evening. So the Gemara says, no, it doesn't. Neshef also means early evening here. So, the Urta V'Urta, from the evening until evening, for a period of 24 hours, from evening to evening. Says the Gemara, if so, stay consistent. Say from the Neshef until the Neshef. Or until from the evening to evening. So for the fact that it changes the language must be that it in fact is referring to the early morning. So does Neshef mean the beginning of the morning, or does Neshef mean the beginning of the night? So the Gemara says, Ela Amar Rava, Rava answers, Trei Nashvi Hava. The word Neshef literally means to jump, okay? So there's two jumpings. There's Neshef Aloya, there's the jumping of the night. V'asi Yamama, when day comes, and Neshef Yamama, when the jumping of the day, the breaking away of the day, V'asi Aloya, and the night is beginning. So it really depends on the concept. The word Neshef just means breaking away or jumping away. And it depends if you're jumping into the night and leaving the morning, or jumping into the morning and leaving the night. Says the Gemara, David Miyabiyoda, Palga Deloya, Amos. Did David know when exactly midnight was that he can get up and learn? This is before atomic clocks. How did he know? Hashta Moshe Rabbeinu read that. Even further, Moshe didn't know. Okay, Moshe was before David. We assume if Moshe didn't have a way of knowing, how would David know exactly midnight? This is sundials, it's very hard to see at night. So the Gemara says, Tichsiv kichatzos halayla ani yetzei b'soich Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu, quoting Hashem, comes and talks to Paro and tells the Pharaoh, Paro kichatzos halayla ani yetzei b'soich Mitzrayim. Says God, I am going to come out and smite and hit and kill all the firstborns. Okay, and I'm going to do it at chatzos halayla, midnight. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say midnight. He said kichatzos laila, which means around midnight. So if you see, it must be that he didn't know. So the word says my kichatzos. What does it mean? Approximately midnight. If you're going to say that Hashem told him kichatzos, Hashem told him around midnight. Hashem doesn't give approximate times. Is there doubt in front of heaven? Does God have doubts? Hashem told Moshe that he's going to strike them at Chatzos. And Moshe came and told the astrologer and told Paro, Hashem's going to come around Chatzos. We'll see later on that he was afraid of the astrologers jumping on Moshe, and he was afraid of them thinking that their clocks would be off, and thinking that Moshe was late. Look, he's late a minute, 2 minutes. Okay, Moshe's a liar. So he said around Chatzos. But Moshe, what do you see? You see that he didn't know. Hashem knew, but Moshe didn't know. Alma Misafkala, we see that it was a suffix. The David Haviyada, but how did David know? So the Gemara says, David Simona Havale. David had a sign. What was the sign? David Rav Acha bar Bizna, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida. Rav Acha, the son of Bizna, said the name of Shimon Chasida. Kinar Hayatali Lamar Mitasu David. There was a kinar. Okay? This heart that was above the bed of David HaMelech, when midnight came, he had help from nature. There was a northern wind that would come, v'neshemes bay, and would blow into the harp, u'menagin me'elav, and would make music. And miyad ha'oimin v'oisa b'Torah, he would get up and learn Torah, ad sha'aleh amud ha'shachar. Okay? So we had the help of an alarm clock until the morning rose. When the morning rose, the wise men of the Jewish people would come in, and they would tell him, our master, our king, the Jewish people having a hard time, the economy, we need money. We need to support them. We need to buy them food. And the first should bring down that, where did David HaMelech have food from? Where did he have money from? So they say that when David HaMelech hit Goliath and he killed Goliath, that the daughters of the Jewish people came together and they created a fund for David, and they gave him a lot of money. So he had a lot of money, so they would come in and say, give us money. So Amalek would say, listen, go to the wealthy people, create campaigns, and support one from the other. They told him, no, not enough money there. Must be SRE. The kaimitz, the kamitza, which is the sign of what the Kohen should take in the Beis Hamikdash, the Ketoros, is not enough. It's a very small amount of a handful. It's not enough to must be SRE to fill up a lion. Okay, so meaning there's not enough to go around. Different ways this breaks down. Rashi explains the bar, if you have a pit, it's very hard if you have a pit to take sand from within the pit and try to fill up the pit. So we're in a hole over here. He told them, so go to war. Now, the concept of war, this is Mechamas Rishus, that they would go to war with the enemy, and they'd come back with booty, with loot, and they'd have money to be able to support the people. So Miyad, go put your hands in war. So Miyad Yotzim Achitophel. They would consult with Achitophel. Now Achitophel was the consulate. He was the main advisor of David HaMelech. He later on became the main advisor of Shalom in the revolt against David HaMelech, and he's one of the 4 people who it said that he doesn't have Olam Haba in the Gemara Sanhedrin, the Mishnah Sanhedrin, and so they went to speak with him. He was a genius now. Okay? The Memlacha, we'll see in a minute, he was such a genius, he had the spirit of Hashem with him, at least at that time, that he was equal to asking God, like he knew the way to go. The Memlacha in the Sanhedrin, and then they would ask counsel from the Sanhedrin, because the concept of the Sanhedrin was a 71 court that's sat in the Rishkas HaGazos, and for every Mechamas Rishus, you'd have to ask the Sanhedrin. Then Rishon Rebbeinu they would ask the Rebbeinu was the Hashem's name that was placed in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, and the words were there would light up. And Amir Yosef Mikra, what's the verse? It says, V'acharei Achitophel ben Yael ben Yoyada, V'yasser v'sar tzava l'melech Yoav. Okay? After Achitophel, they went and talked to Yael ben Yoyada, which is we'll see, which is referring to the breastplate, which is referring to the Kohen Gadol, V'yasser v'sar tzava l'melech Yoav, to get a military plan. Okay, so we'll take it from here, B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow.